Hey everybody, this is Kevin for another episode of Lazy Literature. In my last episode, I was reviewing and recommending Our Man, Richard Holbrooke, and the End of the American Century by George Packer. It's a very good biography if you're looking for some nonfiction to mix up or spice up all of your fiction reading. So if you haven't read anything by George Packer yet, either one of his previous nonfiction books or maybe one of his articles or essays for The Atlantic, you should take a look. Read about Richard Holbrooke a little bit. I didn't expect myself to enjoy a biography about a diplomat from the United States so much, but by the end, I was fully engaged and committed to learning a little bit more about this guy, Richard Holbrooke. Go ahead, take a look at the writings by George Packer. I don't think you'll regret anything that you come across. For this week's episode, everybody, I'm talking about two books that are pretty closely related to the same topic. So this week, my topic for reading and what I'm going to be talking about is that I wanted to focus on young people when they're put in situations where they have to make decisions about their lives. That might sound kind of weird, but at 27, that's something I think about a lot because sometimes I feel like I'm in that position. But for this week, I decided to read High Fidelity by Nick Hornby, and then also Hell's Angels, A Strange and Terrible Saga by Hunter S. Thompson. I really liked the combination of High Fidelity and Hunter S. Thompson writing about the Hells Angels because it's like I had both extremes. If a young person is put in a situation where they have to figure out their identity and make a decision about their future, High Fidelity. If a young person is put in a difficult situation and they have to make a dramatic decision about their future, Hunter S. Thompson and the Hells Angels. The reason I'm saying there are these two extremes that each of the book represents is that let's take a look at High Fidelity, for example. It's a book that essentially is about an English guy around the year 2000 that, is 35. He's got a girlfriend, no kids, just got dumped. And he's got to figure things out because I imagine that if you're 35 and your girlfriend leaves you without any real notice, it's probably upsetting and it probably makes you reconsider a few things about your life. I liked reading High Fidelity because, to be upfront, I like the movie with John Cusack, and I just watched the series adaptation on Hulu, and I really liked it on Hulu where they switched out Zoe Kravitz for John Cusack. It's really good casting, and Zoe Kravitz does a really great job of taking the main character from the book, who's this white English guy and he's 35, and then all of a sudden she's making it so much more relatable and modern to take the story of High Fidelity and set it in New York, like they do in the Hulu adaptation. But I think people should read High Fidelity because it's a great book about music. It's a great book about music and love and the way we bond with other people. High Fidelity is a good book because it makes you ask yourself, am I a total of everything that I like? Or conversely, what I'm like is how people see me as a person. I know that might sound kind of confusing, and in the John Cusack movie, Jack Black's character does a great job of explaining this, but High Fidelity basically asks its readers, are you your own person based off of your personality and your experiences? Or can we fully understand people from what they like? So can we add up all of your preferred episodes of TV, all your preferred movies, all the music that you like and you don't like, and that's how you understand a person? I don't necessarily agree with that. High Fidelity is kind of dramatic, and there's a lot of talking and discussion and dialogue between boyfriends and girlfriends, exes, husbands and wives, best friends, not so good friends, ex-friends. It's a book about relationships in relation to one guy who's going through a hard time. So I would recommend reading High Fidelity by Nick Hornby, but read it in conjunction with Hunter S. Thompson's writings about the Hells Angels. Because I think with High Fidelity, you get a 35-year-old English guy who's having a hard time and becomes super introspective and really diving into his own life. Hunter S. Thompson is writing about a group of young men who at one point or another found themselves in a difficult situation, and instead of becoming intensely introspective and calling up their exes and making their top 5 lists of everything good or bad in their life, they created the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club, which we still have with us to this day. I really like Hunter S. Thompson's writings about the Hells Angels because while I recognize there's a little bit of controversy associated with them, the writings are still accessible for readers like me because I don't feel like I'll ever have the opportunity to fully understand the Hells Angels. It just seems like as a culture or a subculture, there's no access point for me. I don't see myself going out and buying a motorcycle and pledging to a club and trying to make my way inside. But at the same time, I don't really like documentaries or a lot of books about secret organizations. Not to say the Hells Angels are criminals, but criminal organizations, because when it's too academic, when it's too detached from the subject the author is writing about, it doesn't feel real, and it feels like the authors could be making mistakes. The intimacy of Hunter S. Thompson and the subject matter he's writing about, that's the best and the worst thing about Hunter S. Thompson's writings on the Hells Angels. The reason it's so good is that he gives you interviews with club members and he talks about them, what they're like, how they react in different situations, what their thinking is like when they are confronted with problems. And he does a good job of taking you through the early years of the club's history and a problematic, or at the very least dramatic, span of time from around 1960 to 67, 68. And as he goes through this, Hunter S. Thompson, he writes about himself riding with the Hells Angels, going with them on weekend trips, being a part of their parties, having them over to his house. He introduced his wife and son to Hells Angel Motorcycle Club members. And so there is authenticity in that regard. Hunter S. Thompson has enough small details in his writing that it makes you think it's real, that you are actually there. But at the same time, there have been some Hells Angel Motorcycle Club members who were portrayed in his writing, and other members who joined the club later on down the line as time kept going on, who have responded and said his writings aren't accurate, and while he focuses on the small, minuscule negative aspects, there's so much more that goes into being a Hells Angel. Now, I don't know whether that's ultimately true or not, but I think it's important to recognize that when you read Hunter S. Thompson's writing. Yeah, it really is one individual who is going into this experience to create some gonzo journalism, but at the same time, it's the opinion of one person. Their opinion, their thoughts, their perception can be fallible, especially as you imbibe historic amounts of drugs, alcohol, and anything and everything in between. I'm not going to talk about that too much more, but I recommend that everybody go out, buy a copy of High Fidelity by Nick Hornby, and then right after that, buy Hunter S. Thompson's writings about the Hells Angels. Both of them are good by themselves, but I really enjoyed reading them one after another because I could keep thinking about young people and how sometimes they have to reevaluate their identity and make a decision for their future. I don't really know what I'll be reviewing, recommending, or just kind of talking about next week. It could be a series of detective novels by Paul Auster. It could be the Miles Morales story arc in the comics by Brian Michael Bendis. I don't really know right now. I hope all of you have a good day, and I'll keep you updated for next week.